Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and what we're going to do today is our Should You Buy video on the new RSI Mantis. And if you're unfamiliar with this ship or haven't seen my previous videos on it, this is the new Interdiction ship that's now available in Star Citizen. It's another ship that went straight from concept to flight ready, and is basically going to give you the ability to pull ships out of quantum using what's known as a quantum snare. It's basically going to be the interdiction that you experience when you get pulled out of quantum from a NPC. And you also have what's known as a quantum dampener, which kind of sets up a radius around your ship that's going to prevent people within about 20,000 kilometers from actually being able to jump into quantum. They have to run away from you in order to do that. Now, price-wise on the Mantis, we really had no idea where this was going to come in at. It turned out that their war bond price is $135, which for a specialized ship that's kind of new and unique, that seemed to be fairly significantly cheaper than I expected it to be, which is great. Another offering that they have, which is pretty interesting, is that there's an Aurora to Mantis upgrade, which gives you LTI. Basically gives you an option to get an LTI ship. It costs $90. Now, what's unique about that, though, is the Interdiction ship is a pretty singularly focused ship, whereas the Aurora is kind of a multitasker. So when we start talking about gameplay, I think this is targeting some of the newer or just some of the entry-level backers out there. And it's a little bit concerning that you would take a ship that can do a little bit of everything in the verse and get it into something that's very, very specialized. So if you're looking at should you really purchase that upgrade, if you have other ships in your fleet and you want a Mantis, then I would say that's probably worthwhile. However, if you're only going to have one ship, as I'll talk about in a little bit, the Mantis shouldn't be your only ship, at least in my mind. So let's talk about the ship a little bit. Size, it's 30 meters long, it's 17 meters wide, and it's 8 meters tall. It is a one-person ship. As far as the components, it's basically all small stuff. You have 2 small fuel intakes, 2 small fuel tanks, 1 small quantum fuel tank. You also have a small quantum drive, a small jump drive. You have 2 retro thrusters, 2 main thrusters, and 8 joint maneuvering thrusters. The maneuverability on this ship is actually pretty good, and the design, I think, just plays into that. Other components, it's got small radar, small computer, and a power plant. It's got 2 small coolers and 2 small shield generators. Now, one thing that's important to know here is that the quantum drive uses a ton of power. So while it may be great that it's got redundancy in the shield gens or the coolers, and it's got all these other things, when you're actually powering your quantum snare and your dampener, that power plant, that one small power plant, doesn't really hold up very well. So you do need to be cognizant of how you're managing your power, and if you're using it for an extended period of time, you need to start shutting some things down. So if you're sitting there with your snare charged, you probably need to start turning things off. Like, you might need to turn off your shields, you might need to turn off your weapons, you might need to turn off your engine so you have the power to sustain the use there. That also does mean that you're a little bit more vulnerable because you have systems pulled out and you're actively trying to pull somebody out of quantum in order to do that. So it's a little bit tricky there. As far as the design of the ship, I think it's really well done. It's got some Starfleet vibes on the outside with the nacelles where they're kind of placed. It looks like a blend between something like an RSI ship and a Starfleet ship. The interior is small and kind of cozy, but it does have some nice offerings. You've got some minor functions. You have the ability to go in and actually work on your components. They're all available, and it uses the space very well. Now, the FAQ did come out, or the Q&A, I should say, about this ship, and there's a few things in here that I think are important to cover. One is that it's illegal to use the quantum snare in certain jurisdictions. Mainly being if you're in a UEE monitored space, you're going to get a crime stat, and typically you're going to have the advocacy show up, and you're going to have to deal with that, right? That also does mean, though, that you have to be smart about where you use it. So if you're in unmonitored space, it's kind of that whole tree falling in the woods thing. It's not going to get you a crime stat. There's going to be other places that actually are like kind of more outlaw areas where you could use this, and it's not going to impact you. So that does mean that you're going to be a little bit limited in where you can use this, or you're just accepting the repercussions. I'm hoping that we see different ways that this is tracked in the future. For example, if you end up having the ability to see who's traveling in quantum and you have a target there and you've accepted a job, from that jurisdiction, I'm hoping that you don't get a crime stat for popping it there for doing your job. You know, they asked if there's any counters to this, and they said right now it's really just the balance of using it in your ship. For example, you may end up needing to turn off systems in your ship to be able to do this. So it's about power management, and that's kind of, it's not a counter, but it's how you balance out the effectiveness of this. In the future, though, they did say that they may allow players to kind of change the speed in which they're quantum traveling, which may throw off the bubble, or somebody may see you coming, and if you're not coming at a standard, you know, 0.02 of the, or 0.2 speed of light, you know, you may end up having that person, you know, pop it off a little bit too fast. So we'll see how they end up balancing it as we go. It's all still relatively new, and it's not really fully fleshed out yet either. They did confirm that you're going to pull anyone out that's traveling, whether that be friend or foe. You can't target just one person, so if somebody's traveling with a bunch of people, you're probably going to be pulling them all out, which can cause some issues. Also, if somebody was friendly and you pulled them out, they may take that harshly, and you may not necessarily be friendly anymore. There are going to be some interdiction gameplay changes that are on the horizon. One is that they're hoping to have more law response to interdiction, so I think when you start seeing those quantum snare events on the on your HUD, you know, you may start seeing that the advocacy shows up a little bit more, whoever the governing body is at that time. I would like to see players also starting to get incentives to respond to those as well. They're also talking about having larger areas of interdiction, so maybe instead of the small bubble that we have now, maybe it ends up getting a little bit bigger, to be determined. The biggest one that they really need to get in is better tracking of ships that are pulled from quantum travel. No, I think that's really more pointed towards how people are being able to track who got pulled out and where you can go and help them. I think what really needs to be done, though, is the HUD and being able to see people. So when you're using this, it's not just I'm firing blindly and seeing what I get. It's actually targeting a person or, you know, a type of ship or something like that. And then the last one here is really missions for the gameplay. You can kind of go out and make your own gameplay with the ship right now. That being said, there's not really any missions that are being given to you either on the job board or from like mission givers at the moment. So there needs to be a little bit more content surrounding this. They did say that the Mantis cannot use the disruption field while they're locked or docked into another ship. So, you know, if you were to somehow land this in, you know, an Idris or land it in an 890 jump or something like that, you're not going to be able to use the quantum dampener or the snare. You need to be flying in order to do that. They did say that the EMP right now is not directly going to shut down the bubbles. That being said, we've already talked about the power dependencies of using this utility on the ship. And the EMP does cause power issues that could result in that bubble going down. So if you've got, you know, a Sentinel, or if you've got another ship like a Hawk or something that has an EMP on it, maybe if you're stuck with that snare, you could or with that dampener, you could end up using the EMP to overload the ship systems and shut it down. So I'll do a little bit of testing on that, and if there's any interesting results, I'll make sure to share. Now, they did say that right now, the plan is that this is really going to pull anything out of quantum. But in the future, it may get a little bit more balanced as to how this really works. You know, for example, should this Mantis really be able to disrupt a Bengal, for example, and pull it out of quantum? One, that would be hilarious to see a a kilometer-long ship dropping in front of you while you're in the little Mantis. But, you know, it's a little bit more of a balancing in how they want to handle this. So we may see larger quantum interdiction ships coming in the future, which I think is probably likely, not only just from a giving our gameplay progression perspective, but from kind of a little bit of a logic impact too. So we'll see. And then the last one there is that the quantum dampener does impact the Mantis as well. So if you're dampening quantum field for other ships, you're also unable to jump into quantum. So who should buy the Mantis? Well, this is a very specific role for this ship. It's purely a pull people out of quantum and keep them from quantuming again type of ship. You're not going to be using this to do cargo on the side. You're probably not going to go exploring, although you can technically fly around and see things. You're not going to be doing science experiments or really anything but quantum stuff. So the limited audience here is going to mean that there's not a lot of people that are probably saying, this is the perfect ship for me. Where this ship is going to excel is in the mercenary and piracy and bounty hunting type of missions. You can try and set up a blockade. You can try and disrupt trade lanes to try and limit access to certain areas that your organization is working in, or you can try and impact the economy. You can pull bounties out to deal with, or you can just try and steal cargo. But that all comes with a very big but. Big but. This ship has 2 size 3 weapons and only 4 missiles. You know, it's not particularly durable, and you can't really do much damage on your own. If you're using this for piracy, you're not really going to be able to steal their cargo. And the idea of piracy to steal somebody else's ship is going to be challenging too. So what that means is that this ship is really not right for those people that are just playing by themselves. You really need to be playing as part of a group or an organization structure. You're really going to need more fighter and cargo support if this is for piracy, and for bounties and mercenary work, you're going to need some harder hitters as well. I think the idea is that you really need to use this in conjunction with others to be highly effective. Now, that's not to say that you can't do bounty hunting work with this ship, but there are better options as pure fighters to do that. Maybe you're not able to pull somebody out of quantum, but you can find somebody where they're at and actually do the work, as we've seen bounty hunting today. The other thing that we've already talked about is that you also can't control who you pull out of quantum. So it could be an entire organization, it could be the UEE fleet, it could really be anything. So lone wolfing here is a really dangerous proposition. So I think at the end of the day, if you plan on playing with others and you really want to get into this quantum interdiction gameplay, then yes, this is a really good ship. It's an entry level. The price isn't that high, so I think it's a good option. But if you really have your sights on this being your only ship and wanting to be able to do whatever the universe throws at you, it's really not the ship for that. So I did want to let y'all know that I'm going to be giving one of these away, so keep an eye out for a video coming in the next day or so for entries into that giveaway. You don't need to comment here. I'm only going to be looking at that next video. So that's it for this one. If you guys have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, stay tuned for more and have yourselves a wonderful day. Take care.